today's session is all about decoding the national education policy. National schooling and education in general is seeing a change. It's a shift in the paradigm in the field of education through national education policy, which has been crafted after 34 years of prolonged talks with various educators from across India. And to take it forward, I formally welcome our moderator for the day, Mr. Sydney Rose, who's an educator, has been a teacher, a headmaster, and has gained a lot of experience in the field of education from across the globe, and very happy to know that his Indian roots are very firm, and we are very happy to have you, sir, with us. I welcome you on behalf of Edu TV to be the moderator for today's session. I also take it a privilege. I deem it a privilege to introduce the principals who are part of today's session. The first one, Ms. Priyanka Bhakuti, who is the principal of Maxford School. Madam is an avid educator, has been working in the field of education, trying her best to keep up the standards of education in her school, and has had many years of experience in the field of education. Thank you, ma'am, for joining in. And we also have with us an accomplished principal and educator, Ms. Archana Narain, the principal of Indian Heights School from Delhi. Madam is the principal of the school and has varied views on education and has been putting in years of her service in the field of education. Thank you so much. And now I also would like to welcome Pranav, who is the CEO of EduTV, without whom this session wouldn't be possible. Thank you, Pranav. And joining with us now is Principal Swapna Nair, the principal of Arvaton International School. Madam has been in the field of education for many, many years. And I welcome you, madam. With that, I now request Mr. Sydney Rose to take over the session and moderate the nuances of NEP, wherein we are going to discuss about the 5+3+3+4 breakup of education. We are going to speak about how mother tongue has been made the medium of instruction, and compulsory education between the age of 8 and 18, coding, which is mandatory, and also there's scope for multi-stream flexibility in the new NEP 2020, wherein principals across India are shouldering a huge responsibility where they're going to make their students ready for the new 4-year graduation scheme, as well as the common entrance test for the colleges. Thank you so much. Over to you, Mr. Sydney Rose. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to moderate this session. I feel very honored by that. And welcome everybody, and thank you for your participation today. I'm sure that it's going to be a very interesting session. As I said, it's something that interests me very much. And as you've said about me so kindly, I am Mr. Sydney Rose. I have been in education for rather a long time. So as you can see by the color of my hair, in many countries and many cultures, including India. I've worked and lived in India twice, one time in Pune, one time in Gurgaon, as the founding headmaster of new international schools. I've been involved in education in many contexts and seen many countries, how they've been developing their education. I have a very great interest in Indian education from my experience of living and working in India. And as I mentioned earlier, my roots are in India, actually. You know, my great-grandmother was Punjabi, and my grandfather was born in Bombay. So I'm very interested in the NEP 2020. I had the opportunity to read it and try to digest it. Today we are going to hear from principals what they think about it. It's obviously a great load and responsibility on the principals to implement these new policies. We all know as educators that the landscape of education is changing greatly, more so in the last 10 years than in any time. We are using technology far more than we are used to. We've got IA coming into education now. But what I found very interesting about the NEP 20 policy is that it's not only putting emphasis on technological things or academic things, it's putting a lot of emphasis on the development of the creative potential of students, not only on their cognitive capacities, but on their, such as literacy and numeracy, but also on areas such as critical thinking and problem solving and social and ethical things. As I mentioned just before, I have been working in international education. And what has concerned me greatly in the many countries that I've worked and lived in is that the culture of the or traditions of the countries have been pushed away. We know that India has a very rich heritage and ancient heritage of knowledge and culture that has been a guiding light and is, according to the NEP 20, is a guiding light of this policy. So, the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom and truth is fundamental to Indian thought and philosophy. And so I'm interested to hear about what the principals think about this and how they may work to implement this new, this NEP 2020 policy. I don't know who we could begin with. Would anybody like to begin?
Yeah, maybe I can start. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being so brave.
So once again, good afternoon to all. And it's a pleasure to meet two of my friends as well on this platform, Sapna and Priyanka. I know them very well. So in terms of NEP, yes, it was much needed, let me tell you, Mr. Sydney. It was much needed in India because after 1986, I think it's the first policy which has come, and fourth, obviously, after the independence. Now, the whole idea is to take the education system of India by 2040 to a different level. So that is the whole idea. So it is a big challenge, no doubt. And we principals will have to take the responsibility and make sure that we meet the expectations and the requirement of NEP. Now, the whole idea, like you were also talking, that it is, basically develop not only the fundamental capacities and higher order, maybe cognitive capacities, but also the social, ethical, and emotional capacities. So it is a very bold step which has been taken by the Indian government. And the whole vision has been basically to create equitable and vibrant knowledge society. And I'm quite sure over the period of time, with the efforts of all the principals and the teachers, we would be able to see a different education system, which is much needed here in India. And a lot of changes in terms of school education has been um, created in this. And starting from the pedagogical to teaching learning, then to the teachers training, the recruitment, everything, you know, there's a whole lot of things which have been taken into consideration to make sure that none of the areas are left behind. So I'm sure it is a good move. And now, before I further elaborate on a particular angle or aspect of it, maybe I can just request my fellow principals to talk about it.
May I volunteer to be the next
Yeah, please,
participant?
Priyanka, anytime.
So again,
I think the volunteers are very good, and I'm sure that you all have very strong feelings about this. I mean, as a consultant and a former principal myself, I'm very interested in how you are going to implement this, you know, because obviously you are the principals and you are in charge of your schools, but actually it has to be the teacher who is at the center of these reforms, and you know, the paper really has to work not just with the principals, but with the teachers. You know, the teachers are at the forefront of all this, and so I'm very interested in how you're going to think about that. You know, and about how you're going to recruit the best and brightest teachers to work with this. You know, I have done quite a lot of teacher training also in India, and worked with Indian teachers, and they can be very competent knowledge-wise, I found, but sometimes the teaching perhaps was a little bit more like the teachers that I had when I was a boy, which is many years ago. So I'm interested in how you're going to work with that. You know, I think that's one of the fundamental things in this policy, that you know, it's a lot about teachers, not just about principals. It's also about teachers.
okay, thank you, Sydney, for giving me those very valuable cues, which are my own favorites when we work in the field of education, especially teacher training and the role of teachers. So I'd like to start my address. Archana, thank you. She's a dear colleague and we work in close collaboration, and she's given maybe the historical background with the documents coming and the national curriculum framework, which was like the guiding meter for all schools to work with, to now this lighthouse of knowledge coming across, Sydney. I think it is the prayers of principals and teachers collectively being answered in a policy document. If I would like to sum up the national education policy, and the way we have pursued the document, gone through it, the biggest feature that I like tremendously is that it is not just a political or bureaucratic document. The government went across to all the stakeholders, collecting tremendous data and inputs. We principals, teachers, forms were sent to us, there was a thoughts come on forum, express, etc. And the whole nation pitched in. The regional differences, political differences, ideological differences were put apart, and everybody came across to again give to the nation a document which values education. That is itself, and Sydney, you know, you've been in India and you have your wonderful family members who've come from here. India values education, and at the forefront of our beliefs and value system is the teacher, who's respected so tremendously, where across all regions, the teacher is given a respect, and our culture says that at times the teacher is even more important and significant than the ruler or the king. So if any student were to have a king or the ruler before you and the teacher before you, the first person who would get the honor would be the teacher here. This document brings back that respect and that focus to the teacher, where it says specifically in sentences that the teacher has to be respected for what she attempts to do. Because understanding the kind of context that we have, where teachers work in insurmountable conditions and situations, there's a huge amount of dedication there. Yes, the skilling can happen and that can be upgraded, but anybody who chooses to teach classes by walking to schools for an hour, or have classes where the class size is a 60 or an 80 out there, you get the best of teachers from across the world and send to our normal classroom. I'm not talking about privileged schools like ours, but any classroom, and after a month you let them write about our teachers. I'm sure they'll write wonderful eulogies that this is what the teachers are accomplishing day in and out, a year in and out. So one, that part is tremendously respected. Now, what you said about teacher training and how will we implement in our schools, the moment we've received this document, all schools and organizations like the Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangatans or the government schools have put their core teams into place. That how will this document translate? And if you look into the document itself, it has got huge, the first part is school education after the introduction, then you have higher education, and then there is a section, the last one is making it happen. The government actually wants it to be transacted into the classroom, so the beneficiary is the student. That is very important. Now in teacher training, where they've gone across, they have reiterated, they have quantified that minimal this much of continuous professional development of 50 hours has to be there for every teacher. It has to be there for a principal as the pedagogical leader for her organization out there. Now that gives us a beginning point. You can do more than that, but it can't be less than that for us to achieve the goals that we want to. The wonderful part of multiple entry and exit points, not just for students but for teachers also, where there is a 2-year B.Ed degree and a 4-year B.Ed integration program, but at the same point of time, knowing that those teachers who have specialization already, a post graduation or a doctoral, etc., they can also have a 1-year upgrade and certificates, so that a middle school teacher can move to being a secondary teacher out there, equipping, and is not just making attempts on her own individually. So the whole ecosystem is going to support such initiative, and there is going to be an incentivization as well. Clearly mentioned that those who do more will be rewarded more. Now, what better way to look into acknowledging the extra efforts that come across? So here it is an empowering document that has come across to schools. And when I liked it when Manvita mentioned that principals, you have tremendous responsibility. But what this document gives us is tremendous flexibility to ensure that each learner and each team member who is ready for more is able to take that leap of success. So that's why it's a document that it's a policy, and it is something that we are truly rejoicing in. Something to be proud of, Sydney.
No, I totally agree with you there, Mom. As I said, with my Indian heritage, I am very proud of this document. That it's eventually it's come out. It's such a shake-up. May I ask all of you to try to make your comments quite brief and concise, to around 3 minutes. That would be great. Actually, we have a lot to discuss. May I ask somebody else to chip in now? Can anybody else come in?
Yeah. Hi, Sydney. Thank you. I would like to speak wonderful ideas from my colleagues, and thank you, Archana ma'am, for such a beautiful introduction of the policy, and followed by the yes, the love for teachers training is always there. Since we are heading the institutions, it's very, very important that the teachers are being respected for what they are doing. And while this idea of an empowered teacher has of course the potential to move the mountains, the ground realities are quite different. Because when we talk about teacher training, when we talk about teacher training, it's very easy to write on paper, but how much it is implemented, that is more important. The thing is that specifically when we see the results, and otherwise teachers for the performance of the children. So this education policy definitely, instead of blaming the teachers for the poor learning outcomes, it in the classroom, it definitely holds that the teacher education, recruitment, deployment, and service conditions responsible for the lack of teachers' quality and motivation. So this recognition recognizes the power of the teacher, and national education policy is basically definitely talks about how pre-service training should be put in place. There should be definitely pre-service training which should be based on national education policy. See, once the teachers is being recruited and then we expect them to go through the national curriculum framework and then work on it is something which is very, which is not practical. So once the teacher is in service, once she is being inducted into the system, I really feel that pre-service training is something which has to be taken care on, and NEP definitely addresses to this. And once my teacher, when she enters the service and she knows what are the things on which she is to work on specifically, she will definitely work with internal motivation. But once she enters, she's more of into the curriculum. She gets into the completion of looking into the classrooms. So of course this 4 years integrated PED program, wherein 1 year basically works on specialization that like the doctors have, will definitely help the teachers, and not only the teachers, of course, in order to make the classroom environment also beautiful. And the second thing I like is that when the point that says that all the multidisciplinary universities have been directed to set up an educational department, and the B.Ed program has to run in collaboration with those departments, be it psychology, be it sociology, be it neuroscience. It is very important. Teacher is more of a psychologist when she enters the class. So I really feel that this integration would definitely help. Thank you. That's what I feel about the teacher training, and that's my feeling that pre-service training, of course, is important, and the teacher should know. And of course, the teacher recruitment, employment makes sense. The whatever elaborations have been done on the grounds of teacher recruitment and employment, that definitely would bring changes in teacher education.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I'm very interested what you all might think about the NEP envision of the education being deeply rooted in Indian ethos. As I said, in some of my experiences in India is that that was pushed aside a little bit and has been lost a little bit in some of the schools that I've looked at. And especially in some of the elite or privileged schools, if I dare say that. I'm wondering what you would think about that.
I would like to go ahead here, especially the Indian ethos. See, like you mentioned, the roots are very important. No matter where our students finally settle, across the world, our students are going to be global citizens, not just have nationalistic ambitions out here. In this document, the two things which are very special are that they have said that the local context is very important. They have not said national or regional, because if a child is in Delhi or if a child is in a village, they need to know the area, the location, and the climate. So, emphasizing the importance of the child or the student knowing about the local area is very important. You might learn about other places, but your own learning starts first with an awareness of the self, and then of the surroundings near you, and then your horizon widens. Apart from that, there are some very important critical parts to actually encourage the students to be successful anywhere in the world, especially if you look into in senior classes, foreign languages. They're saying they have to encourage, but here look into the students' willingness. And here, if they are, so that your multilingual approach, it is found that students who know more languages and people who are very strongly multilingual do tremendously well. So they are encouraging. It's not just the local context, it is a very international perspective with critical thinking, problem solving, etc. So it is a very inward looking document. document, at the same point of time, it reaches for the sky. So that is what the aim of education is: know the self, and then know the surroundings, and then make the best and contribute to the community to becoming better. So we really these facets are very important to us, and I'm sure gradually it will make a very deep impact on the education system and transform it.
Okay. Thank you, Ma'am. Thank you. That was a very nice word you said there. Would anybody else like to chip in on this?
Yeah, I think I would like to continue with what Priyanka has said, that she's absolutely right, that it is very important that the child is given the freedom to learn in the local language. So a lot of emphasis has been given in NEP on the local language, because we've seen that children, understand that better than than any other language, maybe it Hindi or be it English. So that mother tongue or the home language concept is something very interesting in this NEP. And also, I was just reading, which I think I should share it here, that India has already lost, 220 languages in the last 50 years. And UNESCO has declared that 197 Indian languages are endangered. So it is very important that we, should take up the responsibility that the languages which are getting lost, when the language is lost, the knowledge is lost, the scripts are lost. So we have to understand and take the responsibility. So probably it is a very good thing that multilingualism has been given a lot of importance, and especially once the child has understood the basic concepts in the local or the home language in grades 1 to 5, then 6 onwards, the foreign languages, which includes Sanskrit, also has been given a lot of emphasis. So this is something nice, and this will also ensure that children are rooted to their culture, which is again very important, because somewhere we felt that they were getting drifted away, because most of the times the emphasis was on English. So as a result, their local language was lost. So probably this is going to bring back the culture in India once again. So that is from my side.
Thank you, Ma'am. And I think that what you've said is very important. As I said, I think that the loss of Indian culture is a very sad thing.
Yeah.
The loss of local culture is a very sad thing. Would anybody else like to chip in on that?
That's a different thing. I would just like to add that this is going to be again a big challenge to get a hold of the teachers of that caliber who can do full justice with that local language. That is going to be a challenge, no doubt. How we are going to do it, we have to work upon it. Even the infrastructure, and even in 6 to 8, when they talk about the vocational courses. So which all vocational courses should be introduced? That is going to be another big challenge. And then how are we going to make the infrastructural changes in our school is going to be another challenge. But nevertheless, we know that we are going to come out with a solution towards this.
Okay, nice. Anybody else would like to say anything about that?
Yeah, definitely. After listening to both of them, I also feel that definitely it is an attempt to bring back to life the Indian culture, the languages, and the art forms. And with so much of diversity, it was very important. In since I belong to the South, there was this Hindi thing that was being imposed on the people out there in South, which was with which they were very, very uncomfortable. So now bringing back the local languages and teaching in the mother tongue would definitely be helpful, and definitely the children dropout rates would decrease, specifically in rural areas. And also, there's one thing, with so much of vast difference in the population of the country. I really feel that the sharing of has been talked about, the collaboration between the private and the public schools that have been spoken about in the national education policy will definitely help, because it's, you know, it's very, very important to share resources, specifically in a country like ours, where there are such schools which don't even have the basic infrastructural facilities. So if there is a collaboration between the schools, the ones which are having good infrastructure, the ones who have good teaching staff, maybe if the resources can be shared not only in terms of the infrastructure, teacher resource sharing, then it will definitely help, you know, it will definitely bring about a change. And like Archana ma'am just said, that we've already lost 220 of our languages. So the emphasis, the special emphasis on the mother tongue and on Sanskrit would be a game changer. But again, yes, the implementation has to be in the true spirit, and the planning, everything, you know, basically the success of any policy is how the way it is being implemented. Putting them into the paper is very easy, but then implementation has to be, because since we have such wide range of children coming from different backgrounds, we have to come out with a solution which caters to everybody. But again, then one size doesn't fit everybody kind of a thing. So we have to, you know, maybe take up resources in such a manner, like ma'am said, that vocational education, again, if we area, then the vocational education has to be according to that area. If there's a school in Delhi, the vocational education has to be according to the children living here. So definitely the implementation is going to pose a challenge, but nothing is impossible. So we'll definitely come out with flying colors with the kind of dedicated teachers that we have, and with the students.
Thank you, Mom. And I think that you said something very important then about one size doesn't fit all. I have traveled up and down India, and you can see that, you know, from the north is different, the south is different, from the east is very different. And I think that that's something that principals and teachers have to think very much about when implementing this policy. Would anybody else like to say anything more about that before I move on to?
Sydney,
yes,
I'd like to share a little bit here. You know, the biggest challenge that we had was that, again, the teachers and the students come from extremely diverse backgrounds. Now, the way this policy is giving a push to technology to be used to bridge that is a massive shift in paradigm, because otherwise it used to be a brick and mortar college and a brick and mortar school, and then degrees which were valued. Now here the certification and the credit accumulation, that yes, okay, at this point of time you could do as much. There is a situation in life where your priority had to be something different, so you get a certificate for a 1 year enrollment in the degree course. You could not do the 4 years, and later on when the situation is back, you again integrate and come over. So for teachers, especially because in India, and you worked here in the school domain, we are talking with the context of schools here, all of us are school principals, the majority of teachers are women. And when they're taking fair share of their family, and especially children being born, many times they have to take a sabbatical so that the child is very well cared for. So here it applies for entry, exit, upgradation of courses, online courses that you can do out here, which will be held valid. And the the NCTE will work very, very strongly towards teacher training to give us alternate pathways, so you can learn at your own pace, at your own convenience, at your own investment cost to it. So those flexibilities will add to the gene pool of a better teacher coming to the school who is equipping the students better. Now that is going to really create a huge transformation from radio to television, and not just mobiles out here or your smartphones being used. So the access and affordability will magnify tremendously. And that is what my dear cause is, you know, accessible education and affordable education. Only then we can make it possible. This policy is going to take care of that.
Yeah, yes, Mom, thank you. And I think affordable education is a very important thing globally. Actually, everywhere is facing that issue. Anybody else would like to say anything more about that? I'm very interested in how the NEP sort of changes how schools are structured. A lot of international schools are obviously structured in a kind of British way almost, because it's been inherited from there, from Cambridge or from IB. There is an inheritance about that. But I noticed in the NEP that that they want to change how the curriculum is delivered, away from the sort of 2+10 model, or 10+2 rather model, to a model that is 5+3+3+4 into a preparatory, middle, and secondary way. I mean, does anybody have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I think I would just carry forward what Priyanka was saying, that the most interesting part about this, before I come to that 5+3+3+4 thing, that in the assessment pattern, which is going to get changed, because that is going to be again a redefining moment in the education system of India. Whereas here, students are rushing for the marks and the percentage. So this is going to definitely change. And it is also, it will be, a 360-degree kind of a report, which says that it is going to be based on the uniqueness of each child. And then it will be also including the self-assessment, then peer assessment. Then it is going to be based on AI based softwares, which NEP has suggested that it should be developed, so that we can understand the strengths, the areas of interest which are there in the children. So the report is going to be based on that. So that is something very interesting as far as the senior classes are concerned. And this board exam obviously is going to get redesigned totally. And then, like what she said, children would be at the liberty to change the subjects, pick up the subjects of their choice, drop in between, can switch over. So that is again going to be something very different. Now I'll come back to your statement which you made, that how are we going to bring it at par with the foreign universities. So probably this particular important change which has come now into the senior classes is similar to what we see in the foreign countries, in other countries. And similarly, the Indian government has already invited the foreign universities to come and start their campuses here in India with the 4-year degree course, which is there. So now it is going to be mapping up almost like what we have outside. The children will not face a problem. Otherwise, children who were studying with the 10+2 model used to face a problem later on when they used to switch over to foreign countries. So probably this is going to bridge the gap here with this new education policy.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And anybody else would like to say anything on that?
Sydney, I'd like to speak about what you spoke about. Now, there is a structural change that has been brought about into the school domain, into the bifurcation of the levels. Now, we, the ones who are already going by pedagogy and age development of students, were doing that in their school domain, using common sense into common practice. There is a child who is a 3-year-old, and to a 5-year-old, and to an 8-year-old. You can't club them all together. Going by what Swapna said, one size does not fit all. So automatically in our schools, we were looking into teaching practices and curriculum being developed with early childhood care, then the primary, then the middle, and then secondary, where the 10+2 was looked into. But all sensible organizations were already bracketing 9 to 12 together. So what was being done practically is now implicit in the document as well. So it validates that common sense is coming as a principle of governing the school structure as well. Now, very important change, what I want to stress about over here is that you now have working parents, and children were going to school at an early age, not at the 6+ or class 1. So because of this, there was a mushrooming of creches and early care centers where knowledgeable, researched practices were not there because it was completely an ungoverned sector. Now it brings into the need, a labor's child needs care as much as the child of a CEO. So it is bringing care at that age group from the training of the grassroots Anganwadi worker. There is a huge stress on that, because these Anganwadi workers are the ones who are taking care, especially in rural areas. Yes, not just very high defined creche and babysitting facilities out there. So the moment it comes here, the whole national think tank will work into policies which are safe practices, also into curriculum which is age appropriate, and activities which are developing your gross motor to your fine motor skills, etc. So it will be a thought based learning which is coming into these classes, and not just curriculum taking over from class 1 onwards. That will be great. The next part is 9th to 12th integration, where we are preparing them for higher education. So when the 9th to 12th, we know the children are very smart, they're very intelligent, they absorb, they're digital natives out here. Preparing them from 9th itself for higher education and for the board exam will definitely improve the performance, with integration of your interdisciplinary approach, art integration, your sports and health being given focus on. So it is a very well balanced student who's geared up to take the challenges of the world outside, who can analyze, who can do a critique, who can do problem solving. So the kind of students we will give to higher education organizations will be who are employable, who are contributing, and who are not just carrying a certificate, but the knowledge and the skill set to be able to deliver.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you. I thought something that you said very interesting then was about early childhood care and education, because I know that in India, crores of children have not had the availability of that. And this document seems to be putting quite a lot of emphasis on that. We all know that about 80% or even more of child's cumulative brain development happens before the age of 6. And so I think the NEP document giving emphasis on early childcare is important. I've always worked in K-12 schools, and I've always thought that kindergarten is a very important part of a child's education. I don't know if anybody would like to chip in on that or have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would like to say something here. As rightly said by Priyanka, it's very important. There's this one word which I like the most is employability. Employability is something which you have to look into, because there were these researches which took place, and after the researches, it was said that about 85% of our children are not employable once they are out of the engineering college. I really feel is with this policy has a great focus, which is laid on equipping the children with the 21st century skills, with coming of coding and AI and all this stuff. There's a great flexibility in choosing a subject. There's no rigid demarcation as to whether the child has to choose arts or sciences. So there would be a lot of liberty given to the children. So this will definitely make a difference. So there will be no there would be no hard and fast rule that a humanities child cannot learn sciences or a science children, because I have always advocated that if a child is not interested in learning physics, and that's perfectly fine, but with the subjects that he would learn, definitely he would, there would be subjects of his would lead him to maybe getting a better opportunity in life. And this will definitely help us to widen our domain. And even the child would in earlier times, it was that the only those main subjects have to be studied at the honors level, and all that would actually be reformed with the coming of the university structure, also the way we would be giving, because it's very important to have a consensus between the universities and the schools. So once our children are out with a particular subject, the university has to accept that subject courses that the universities would offer. Like Archana rightly said that with the kind of liberty that the government has planned to give to the external universities abroad, there would be definitely increase in the national income, that would definitely be there. That is part of economical. But on the other hand, when we will have campuses of other universities coming to our country, it would definitely help our children to widen their horizon. So they will definitely get something which they would not have got, because some parents don't have that economic background to send their children abroad. But those children will also benefit, not only the country at the economic front. Of course, that is a different issue altogether. But if you see that the policy which includes the setting up of university, definitely help the children to widen their horizon. And this pandemic time has definitely taught us something, that is, to all educationists, Maslow is of course before Bloom. So that kind of thing, where taking into consideration all the needs of the students at all levels and all degrees, would definitely help. And there's one more thing that I definitely like about what the policy says, which it gives a setup of inclusive education fund kind of a thing, and special education zones which would support
Mhm.
the disadvantaged groups, economically disadvantaged groups. So that kind of dropout ratio basically doesn't happen in urban areas. But of course, if you have that gender inclusion fund kind of a thing, definitely both girls would also get the kind of education that they deserve. So this is a definitely a good move. And coming back to the ECC, the points like Priyanka ma'am rightly said, that the kind of importance being given to Anganwadis will definitely be milestone in the field of education, because we at our schools and private schools, we are already having that pre-nursery, nursery kind of a thing, but not in government schools where they admit the children at the age of 5. So there is a need to build up the children. And there too, it is very important that they have do-it-yourself kind of activities like they have in foreign countries, where the children, have the ability to develop their gross and fine motor skills. So definitely, we have long suffered all these problems. So maybe this would be a relief to us and a breather for all the teachers with having so many good things to talk about. But of course, the challenges are there, and those challenges would be met with a kind of transparency in setting up the policies. That's what I feel.
Thank you, Mom. I think that you touched on a very important point there about the dropout rate in Indian schools. I've witnessed that, and I see that there are some initiatives in the document to try to bring children back into school that maybe have dropped out. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about that.
Yeah. So I would like to say here, there was a report which said, almost 5 crores students
Yeah.
in India in junior classes are not able to go ahead to senior classes only because of this particular reason, maybe because of the language reason, maybe because of the affordability and so many other issues. So this is again going to be a good step, because with the Anganwadis and all these coming up, it is going to bring a change. And also it is going to uh, pay a lot of emphasis and stress on the importance of literacy and numeracy skills of the
Absolutely, yes.
students in the junior classes, which are very, very important. So I think all the schools, though private schools are already working towards it,
Mm.
they'll not be required to make too many changes, but probably the schools would have to rework in these areas to bring about a transformation in the teaching strategy, especially because then only the fundamental skills can be developed and strengthened, and maybe it can be achieved in grades 3, grade 5, grade
Mm.
8. This is what the NEP is talking about. So I think this is going to be again one area where the schools will have to rework, and we have to make sure that the reading, writing, learning of the basic mathematical concepts may be introducing it, and then teachers will have to have the innovating teaching practices introduced, because they'll have to make their teaching very interesting. And experiential learning is going to be another very important feature, because then only probably we'll be able to have that fundamental concepts taught in the most interesting way. So this is another good thing I feel is going to be there. And then it is also going to change the complete classroom scenario, because that once the teacher has been empowered, so it is going to change the classroom scenario, and then we will be moving away from rote learning, maybe, or to memorizing, then to will be, it will be more of the experiential learning kind of a step, and children would be enjoying understanding the concepts, because that is more important. So schools will have to probably, I feel, adopt that top down approach. They will have to do that of shifting from syllabus completion, because most of the times teachers are rushing towards that, to defining learning goals. And CBSE also has worked in detail about the learning outcomes and the learning goals. So that is again going to be a very interesting feature which is going to be there, and it would change the classroom instruction through this innovative pedagogy. Yeah.
Thank you, Ma'am. I think that you said some very interesting things there. Unfortunately, I saw quite a lot of rote learning going on in India to complete the curriculum, basically, and that was interesting. And I noticed that the NEP document talks quite a lot about learning being holistic, integrated, enjoyable, and engaging. I think in that respect, there will be a lot of work to be done from the principals and the teachers. I mean, the teachers are under a lot of pressure from the principals. We want your learning to be exponential, your teaching to be exponential, but you still have a curriculum to fill. I wonder what as principals you might think about that.
Okay, I'd like to respond to that, Sydney. First and foremost, I'll share here. Archana has actually, what shall I say, given an experiential moment of how principals are going to do it. She did it in such a nice way. She was talking about all the challenges and she was laughing about it over here. So she has actualized the happy classrooms that we are giving out here. Okay, there is a challenge, but then let's understand, we break it up into subparts like coding out here, and each part we gradually conquer at a time. Now, where this national education policy becomes very important, jokes apart, is it is giving a very coordinated effort towards addressing the challenges. You are not struggling alone. From the center to the state governments, to the examination boards, higher education, as well as NCERT and NCTE, very strongly we felt that these were isolated. Yes, there were areas of communication and circulars, etc., but it was not a coordinated effort. With technology and mapping of students, we have something called as UDICE. So every student is mapped in the government database. Over there, they're able to track how the child is doing with the marks, with the age, as well as on the different parameters. Now, this data is being used very strongly for research-centric education. So you have valid data to work on. You're not just making, steps in the dark. So you're able to say at this point of time that primary, we have greater student absorption and transactions happening. And in the middle, it becomes lesser, and gradually lessens further once the children are appearing for the board exams and there is a dropout rate. And finally, in colleges, it's the most dismal situation. So then they have started to address that. First, there was a right to education, the law that came across, which has improved the statistics tremendously. Now, it is not just a law which will make a difference, it is the actual practice which is going to make a difference there. Now, what they have done is that they have identified the causes why the dropout is happening at the primary level, at the middle level, at the college level, and they have tried to address the same. The biggest is if the child does not demonstrate any learning after going to a school where the child and the parent are investing time and energy and money out here, there will be no value seen in such an activity. So the student, somebody who's coming from a socially and economically deprived background, will strongly feel that it's better that the child learns with me the skill of being a shopkeeper or something else, a carpentry, rather than not learning something in the school. So the moment it is becoming learning outcome centric, where they have very specifically made the focus clear, it is foundational literacy, foundational numeracy, focus on it. We do not want children to memorize 1,000 facts and not know how to read independently or to write independently there. So it is addressing the core issues that make the children know how to learn. This is the most beautiful part that is being stressed all across. It is not just about learn facts, learn how to learn. This is being taught to the student, it is being taught to the teacher, and it's being taught to the principals. So with the coordinated effort, the dropout rate is being addressed, and very important, where your Swapna Nair ma'am touched on it, the inclusion is very important. All government bodies and schools are working very strongly to it, but there is one part which I have always felt strongly with, the strive towards excellence. They have categorically put in a section for the gifted and the genius.
Yeah.
So because every time, you know, the curriculum is addressing the average, or it is seeking to bridge wherever there are gaps in learning. What about the phenomenal Einsteins in the class or the A.R. Rahmans out there? So it is saying, look at these children who are above average and nurture that intelligence, because these are the ones who are going to take society ahead. So those parts are something that I have truly rejoiced in, because even in our school structure, we have tried to layer these things out. So it's a very well thought of policy, and we are it's not about challenges. It's like, I think, the very cliched brand you know, logo. I am loving it. So I'm sure the teachers will also love it, because it addresses the challenges and it gives us the solutions both.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. And I can agree with you wholeheartedly on that. When I read the document, I felt very happy in my heart that India was now looking at that. I wonder what, as principals, you think about the idea to reduce the curriculum content in the core subjects. You know, I think that there is sometimes, you know, as a principal, that there is some expectation from parents that you know, maths and science are the important elements of any curriculum, and they, you know, we all want our kids to be lawyers or engineers or doctors. Of course, it can't be like that. I am a former arts teacher. I should mention that perhaps at the beginning. And so I was very happy to see that part of this document talks a lot about the integration of arts and culture and a cross-curricular pedagogical approach being employed, which is rather in line with, I don't know if any of your schools do Cambridge or IB, but it's rather a little bit in line with that. And as somebody said earlier on, in what is going on outside, she said, actually, globally, you know, we are looking at a cross-curricular pedagogical approach these days. It sort of ties into what we were talking about earlier on about core learning, core teaching, and core learning. I know as principals that there's a lot of pressure on results, you know, and parents want to have straight A students. Of course they do. We all want our kids to be straight A students, but I wonder what you think about that. I wonder what you think about the curriculum content for core subjects being reduced.
Yeah, so like, you know, what I just now said, I would like to speak, Sapna, for a minute or two, then you can take over. Yeah. So what he was saying just now, that it is going to be all experiential learning and integrated approach. So when we talk about integrating the subjects, the streams, so already the brainstorming is going on, that how we have to now change and redesign the curriculum. And already NCERT has started working towards it. And we've been told by 2021, we're going to get the new curriculum. So obviously new curriculum has to be compatible with the new education policy, the kind of changes it is bringing up. So I'm sure they're working towards it, because it also talks about, in classes 6 to 8 about the vocational. Till now, we never had vocational courses in India in these classes. So if they're talking about that they're going to introduce so many vocational courses, so they have to come out with a curriculum for that also, because they have to give some kind of a broader outlook or a design or framework to the schools, that how they should go ahead with the vocational courses. Because it also talks about that children are going to take the internship in these vocational crafts. So how are they going to do it? So whether it is the main subjects, whether it is the vocational subjects, I'm sure the curriculum definitely requires a change. Yeah, over to you, Sapna now.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Rightly said, it's always this Indian system of education has always been examination oriented. Like Sydney said, that parents are always bothered as to how the child is going to do in class 10 and 12 board examination. So with the redefining of the assessment thing, I would definitely agree to the fact that the level of teaching and the way the classroom is being managed, the way the planning is being done by the teachers would definitely have a shift. We would start getting children who are not with well-formed minds rather than well-filled minds. So it's definitely going to help, because once the assessment pattern changes, once since the NEP has already recognized that the children have to be evaluated on the higher order skills such as the analysis, the critical thinking, conceptual clarity. So it definitely indicates a shift, a focus of assessment. And with the focus of assessment, and like Archana ma'am said, the 360-degree development of the child with the progress report, if these things are put into place properly, then of course the move, basically what we do is we have examinations in mind, we have that burden, that stress, once it is decreased, then definitely it would encourage the testing the core competencies of the child and reducing the academic pressure, and the kind of coaching classes that the parents look for, that but that would come to a stop, because then the thing would be more on competency based education. It would be like a partnership between the school and the parents. We've seen this kind of partnership and very well accepted by our parents, which we never thought. But in this pandemic, this shift has already happened. The parents have already taken a front seat when they are guiding their children back home. So we have seen that the mindset has to change. And the bigger issue was that the teachers have that syllabus completion mindset versus the competency attainment mindset. And not only the mindset, the others, the kind of the shift would change. And like we have universities abroad which ask us to give references and write letters of recommendation for the children, so that is all competency based. So that shift, once it happens at this level in schools, definitely it is going to impact a lot on the kind of standardization that would happen, the administrative system that is going to happen, the classroom environment, and of course the happy classroom. Once the stress comes down, the level of stress comes down, we will definitely have an established kind of a policy where, and again, like ma'am said, that it has to, it has to be in sync. The curriculum framework that comes has to be in sync with the national education policy. So once it is in sync and the people who are involved are taken into consideration, I'm sure that in long run it will help India to align with the global benchmarks, such as the program for international PISA and all, so that where our children have been lagging behind in such international benchmarking tests, this national education move to prioritize the assessment, it can make India globally competitive. It will help in enhancing the kind of knowledge and skills that we have. So it's kind of skill enhancement that is going to happen. Nurturing the values, of course, would definitely help and take a front seat. It would lead the way for the rest of the world to see. So that's what I really feel, because Indian education system has always been, revered and taken care of, and people have across the world have accepted the kind of system that we have. And that's the biggest example is that there are children, our children have been spread all over the world, taking higher positions. So there, the only difference was being the gap that was created. So that gap would be bridged now with this coming of national education policy. And this would definitely ensure that the students are not left behind in any sphere of life.
Thank you, Mom. I think that you said some lovely and very important things there. Of course, you are right. Already, Indians are accepted all over the world for their high levels of education. And as I said, what I thought was very interesting was this little bit of shift away from absolute academia to a more integrated and holistic approach. I was very interested in one particular paragraph in the NEP document, which talks about sports integration. In my experiences in India, I have always seen in schools that sports was seen as a kind of extracurricular activity that was not much to do with the academics of the school. I wonder what principals might think about that. I mean, you know, I know about the Fit India movement and how now India wants to see sports as being an important part of a curriculum. And that is also a global issue. You know, we are facing an age, the Coca-Cola, McDonald's age, where there's a lot of junk food going into our children. And so I was very interested to read that sports integration being part of the cross-curricular pedagogical approach. I wonder if anybody has any thoughts about that.
I'd like to express, it's not just our thoughts right now. The pandemic has taught the whole world a very important lesson on valuing health and good health. As per schools in India, all schools were not just making efforts what the government was telling them. They had their own individual efforts, not just for sports, but then a very holistic integration of physical activities. It could be dance, where you are, the eye-hand coordination, the body movements are getting developed well. So here, we in most of the schools have these sports education mandatory for all students. They make provisions for children in case their needs are very different also, so that they're being taken care of. But very importantly, I'd like to share that, earlier, and you have worked in India, especially for the board years, what was happening is that there was a huge focus coming into academics, and these children were being deprived of a lot of the co-curricular activities. Now we went across to our children because they're already under a lot of stress. There is a pressure there, and exercising is the short way to be healthy mentally and physically, and also to develop focus. So we went across to our children and we made it mandatory, especially in the board years. And then the CBSE also came with the HPE that every day 1 hour of exercise is necessary. So it's empowered the schools to go across to the parents. And Cindy, the parents in India now are extremely forward looking. Their thoughts are valid when they say, and when they're choosing a particular stream, they're saying it because there is employment in that stream. They are not against the school, they are not against their child, but they are also very attuned to the practical realities of life. So when we are building school systems, we have to keep that in mind. And I'd like to quote 2 examples from the real context, not just generalizing. We have had a student in our school who thought only science. He couldn't relate with anything else because he lived and breathed, and he was into computers and app development. I'm talking 7 years before. When it was only taking over, he was advanced. He took part in an inter-university competition and developed an app to link the weather with the crops for farmers. And he won, and he beat all university students. He got a grant in lakhs, and our school got a grant for innovative out here. This child in the 10th board could not do well, because over there you don't have just science, you have other subjects as well. So he did not qualify for the science allocation, but we had went across to him that you are brilliant, and if anybody deserves a science, it is you, because you are a practitioner, you are a scientist in the making. And even now he's gone to an international university. He's developing and his innovations are winning awards left, right, center. So we need to be able to recognize talent where it is and nurture that. In sports field, there is a student who is so good in judo that he went and he competed in categories beyond his age group. He competed with the armed forces, which are a level above, and he beat them too. And immediately recruitment and seats in colleges were reserved without having to think of merit, because India, the premium colleges, the merit goes very high. So here, this talent, when we nurture, the alternate pathways are there. Parents were very supportive. They went across whenever we were scheduling trainings, etc. And even during the board years, he was worried that will I pass, because 3 months he was competing and he passed with flying colors. He was the first one who came to my school with sweets that, ma'am, look at this. I was wondering if I'll pass, and I have above 80s in all the subjects. We rejoiced in the success like this, because the moment you found your calling and you are an expert or a genius in something, you will start to do well in life. So that parents also recognize. They're very supportive. Only thing is, sometimes they may have a unique thought process, so schools have to take them along, so that the students are nurtured in the in the best fit pathways which are there for them.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. I just looked at my clock, actually, and I saw that we've already been talking for around an hour and a half. We'd like to wrap up quite soon. Can I just have of each of you, perhaps, just a 30 seconds of a summary of what you think about the new NEP 2020 document? What are your thoughts in 30 seconds?
Okay, so I'll start quickly and then. So I feel that this NEP has, I think, all the ingredients of a wonderful recipe in the form of new age learning. And that is what to my mind right now it comes, because it is taking care of every small little aspect of the child's personality towards the holistic education. So to me, it is a full, it's going to be a wonderful
recipe. Thank you.
Towards new age education, yeah.
And I'm sure
Priyanka, over to you now.
I'm sure that you're a very good cook, ma'am.
It just came to my mind that it appears, that we're taking care of everything, the cognitive skills, the creative aspect also, the, analytical part also. Then we talked about the sports also. They're talking about, creating project-based circles. Yeah. So where we have to have the extracurricular activities, and they at the national level also, the government is going to fund the school with having the summer program, so that the children can come participate, gain confidence. Because when you talk about the integration, it nothing but builds the confidence of the students. So we are looking towards that along with the academics, along with the knowledge, the confidence building also should be there in the child, be it through art integration, be it through sports integration. So I think it is a very good thing which is we are waiting for, and I'm sure it is going to lead us towards a better education system in India.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Archana, for that wonderful analogy. And here, for me, if I were to define the national education policy, I would define it as a wonderful empowering which has been given to us, which celebrates diversity, gives us the flexibility and also the pathways, so that we don't just have very strong roots, but we also have the wings to take the leap of success.
Thank you, Priyanka, ma'am. That was lovely.
So beautifully put across by my friends. Actually, it's actually something which is definitely forward-looking flexible and progressive, and it's something which we've been waiting for a long time. So it's like Archana ma'am said, a very sumptuous recipe. I would quote it as a platter which brings us everything that we have been longing for last 34 years, and definitely it is going to be an absolute shift from the rote learning to the competency based learning, and like our prime minister has also said, that it will tell us how to think, why to think, and what to think. So of course all the problems that would be taken care of. So we are all looking forward for the beautiful implementation of the policy, and looking forward for a shift in the education system altogether. Thank you.
Thank you, Mom, and thank you for all of you. I think that we're going to wrap up now in a second. My feelings about the NEP, as I said, were very heart-lifting. I was very inspired by what I read.
Thank you, Mr. Sydney Rose.
So
Thank you so much.
thank you, Sydney.
Moderating this session, and to wrap it up, probably NEP is not just going to be an area where we open our children to the global arena, but India is also open to receive global audience. As you have all brought it up rightly, we are going to meet the benchmark, the global benchmark. That's right. And on the other side, pedagogy and andragogy are given equal weightage in the NEP. Along with that, I myself being an educator and a psychologist, I know the importance of keeping it stress-free, which is very well catered to in NEP. The nuances of the actual education system is being brought back with certain core values and skill sets that are needed for all our children, starting with early safe childhood care to making children employable and future ready. Thank you so much everyone for joining in today's session on NEP, decoding the NEP. To sum it up, probably I have picked up 5 words for decoding NEP: digital, flexible, affordable, continuous education system, which is also affordable. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Sydney Rose, for a wonderful moderation. We would love to see you back in India soon.
And I would love to be back in India. The last thing that I would like to say is as I said, I've worked with Cambridge for many years, and with Cambridge University for many years. And the slogan of Cambridge is education for life. And I think that is what this NEP document is addressing, that is to make Indian students employable in the global society. And I think that is very important. Okay, and so thank you again, ladies. Lovely to meet you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure interacting with each one of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I hope to meet you.
I would like to thank.
It was a great experience, a learning experience.
Yes, I would also like to thank Archana Narain ma'am, Priyanka Bhagwati ma'am, and Swapna Nair ma'am for joining in today, and Pranav for establishing this wonderful platform for all of us. We are connected digitally. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Edwin.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.